Hi readers! Welcome back, or welcome to my channel! Today we are going to be talking about a series that I have read recently One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. So these books, they were not my introduction to fantasy. As a kid, I did read a bunch of like fantasy, wizard, fairy, that kind of stuff. When I first started reading again, after so many years, I read two other books, The Shadows Between Us and The Darkness Within Us. I read those as kind of my reintroduction to fantasy. When I read these books, oh my freaking god, 5 stars. 5 stars. It was the setting. The original magic blew my mind. Like, she must have spent so much time on these books. The Shepherd King Duology by Rachel Gillig is by far my favorite reads of 2024. They were phenomenal. I cannot remember how many pages were in each of them. I do believe they were around the 400 to 450 mark, so decent sized books. I had them on my Kindle, so it was a lot easier to read them, and they are still on Kindle Unlimited, I believe. I read One Dark Window in 2 days, breezed through it. I gobbled it up, and then Two Twisted Crowns, I read it in 3 days, only because I think one of those days I was busy or I was out doing something. I literally 4 hours just wanted to read it. I think one night I read for 6 hours. Just because I was like, I have to find out what happens next. Elspeth and Raven were the first couple in One Dark Window. And then there was actually, I mean, again, my repertoire for books is not what most people's are. So far, I have not read a duology where there is 2 couples that get together. I really liked how Rachel Gillig put in like 4 different POVs almost in the second book, without spoiling, obviously, without spoiling. Her writing style is really unique. The rhyming in the book was, it just all flowed so well. The foreshadowing, bringing back like the rhymes. I felt like watching a Detective Poirot movie because I was like, oh my gosh, I remember that connects, and it filled some kind of satisfaction in me when the puzzle pieces like connected so well. Like even at the end of the book, I'm like, oh, I remember that from the first part, or I remember he did it. Perfect. The character development was good. The magic building was good, the world building, it was very original. To kind of briefly summarize the book, we have Elspeth Spindle, who is the main character of our book, or books. There are 12 Providence cards, and they kind of remind me of tarot cards in a way, if you will. Each one has a specific type of magic tied to it, and if its user touches the card 3 times, they have that magic. And they have that magic until they tap it 3 times again, or someone else taps it. They range in most magical, or I guess most lethal or rare, to the least. And the concept of it was kind of hard to grasp at first because it was a lot of information, but I think by the middle of the first book, I finally was like, okay, got it. Oh, that's what that card does. And she did put in little reminders. If I was like, what did that card do again? It would have a subtle reminder of what that card did. I was like, oh, okay, good. The descriptive language, I mean, I cannot rave enough about these books. Anything else that Rachel Gillig writes, I am going to read and I'm going to buy. Every single one. Like, guaranteed. The story was very engaging, obviously. I just gobbled it up. And it wasn't, I don't want to say it was too predictable. There was parts where I was like, no, oh no, what's gonna happen? Like, I have to keep reading. And there was some parts that were predictable, but I think for the most part, I was on the edge of my seat. I was always left wondering, like, well, how is this gonna come to a conclusion? And what does she mean by that? There was one part where she said something. If I knew those were the last words I was gonna say out loud to him, I would have said something different. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It didn't feel rushed. and it didn't feel slow. It was actually a really nice paced book, which I find difficult sometimes in fantasy books. Sometimes they drag on because they want more things to happen, and you're just like, okay, when are we getting to the end? And then sometimes it's like, oh, okay, now we're at this stage. That's interesting. And this, I think, had a really nice pacing. Again, anything she writes, take my money. Take my money. I did connect to the characters, but I wasn't, I guess, moved emotionally by the characters, if that makes any sense. I didn't feel a kinship with any of them, maybe because I didn't relate to any of them, and that's okay. That's just personally I didn't. But I did enjoy the characters. I did enjoy the range of characters. There were parts that made me laugh, and there were parts that made me really, really shocked, where I audibly like gasped or out loud was like, no, like about to throw my Kindle. So this book really does get a reaction out of you. I don't want to say an emotional reaction, but there were some like violent parts, or there were some scary parts. And I think like that is maybe a warning to people that don't want a heavy, I don't want to say it's violent. It was more, there were some like scary elements, but I don't think it was that scary personally, but I also enjoy horror movies, and I also enjoy like Stephen King, so take that how you will. I would 100% recommend this to anyone who loves fantasy. Literally anyone who loves fantasy. Even if you don't love fantasy, try these books out, please. I think they're so underhyped. I do not see enough word of mouth about this. I have on Pinterest, ironically, actually, but not on TikTok and not on YouTube, but it needs to be talked about more personally. I love this series so much. I know that there's another one. I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called. So her new novel is called The Night and the Moth. I am 100% going to buy this book. I don't care if I don't know what it's about. I'm going to buy this book. The spice rating in this book, I mean, I don't even want to give it a 2. The first book, it was a 1, maybe a half. And the second book was a 2, 1.5, 2. There was not very many spice scenes. It's very romance subplot, and I actually like that. I mean, there are some times where I just want to dive into romance, and that's all I want, and just throw in maybe some story elements. But if you are looking for something with a firm romance subplot, these books are for you. But overall, I am rating this 5 stars. Honestly, I want to rate it 6 stars. The only reason I'm not is because I didn't emotionally connect with the characters. I didn't feel moved. There is a book that I just read right before I filmed this video. I just finished it, and I'm going to do a YouTube video on that, where I literally cried. I literally cried because I connected to the characters so much, so that will be coming later. I'm really just grateful to be able to film and to talk about my love for books. I'm 4,000 miles away from home, so all of my friends and family are away from me. There's a time zone difference, so I don't really get to have conversations like I am to the camera, but to you guys, like I used to. And so this really gets out all that pent-up energy of wanting to read and wanting to discuss books. And I am in a book club over here, and that's the book I'm going to talk about in the next video. But it's just not the same. We only meet once a month. I want to constantly talk. I'm constantly reading. I read 3-4 books a month, you know, and I think that this is a really good outlet. If you love books as much as I do, please subscribe to the channel or leave a like or some comments. If you have book recommendations, if you have book recommendations, please comment them. I'm currently updating my TBR. This is technically my physical TBR, and then I have my Kindle as well. I want to have so many books on my TBR that I don't know where to start. I'm kind of already there. But it's fine. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the support and the love, and that's really it, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you much. Until next time, guys. Bye. Bye.